Lucinda Embry is spotted on the playground gazing off into the distance as if she is seeing some terrible incident, and enclose them in a time capsule as part of the school's formal opening day ceremony. We observe Lucinda in a trance, frantically scrawling what appear to be random digits. A crowd has gathered for the event as the time capsule is lowered into the schoolyard. Lucinda can be seen alone and observing the happenings in the distance. This motivates a search team to find her. When it discovers Lucinda inside, her fingernails bloodied from scratching further numbers into the wooden door. Before pleading with Miss Taylor to put an end to the whispers, she is still sobbing and acting as though she is in a trance. The scene then cuts to the present. 50 years later, Professor John Koestler from Myatt and his son Caleb are first introduced to us at their home. For his son, who is carrying a white pet bunny, John is frying hot dogs. Due to his hearing impairment, Caleb wears a hearing aid which will be crucial later. John was seen at the film's beginning, while speaking to his colleague Phil after the lecture, leaving the numerous sketches and images from Miss Taylor. Caleb receives Lucinda's page of numbers onto the board out of sheer surprise, and with the aid of the internet. The bombing of the Pan Am flight over Lockerbie, the bombing of Oklahoma City, and Hurricane Katrina are just a few examples of the significant catastrophic events that seem to have been predicted by the number groupings throughout the past 50 years, along with their dates and casualty counts. A few groupings of numbers are still uncircled and unaccounted for, suggesting that these figures may foretell future occurrences. John looks at the number series 102,708 for a brief moment before horrifiedly dropping his glass. It becomes apparent that Allison passed away on October 27, 2008. John finds Miss Taylor with great determination and speaks with her at her residence. He learns about Lucinda, her disappearance, and how they discovered her in the closet after she left numbers on the door. Unfortunately, Lucinda passed away some time ago, according to Miss Taylor. John oversleeps the following morning and neglects to pick up his son from school. John gets stranded due to an accident on a motorway in the pouring rain while en route to pick up his son. Glances at Lucinda's letter and finds the identical collection of digits just after the sequence that lists the day's date. Then all of a sudden he realizes the current latitude or longitude coordinates on the GPS system. He exits his truck and walks toward the scene of the collision. During his conversation with the police, an airplane flies onto the fields next to the highway, where it explodes. The aftermath of the disaster is depicted in a subsequent, intense, and unsettling sequence. While explosions are still occurring, John does everything he can to aid the survivors, many of whom are burning and in excruciating pain, before rescue personnel push him back. Later that evening, Phil visits John. Given the latitude and longitude coordinates for the days that are not circled and the knowledge that John was present when the jet crashed, Phil has become quite uneasy. Even though John is very busy because there are still two huge disasters left in the number sequence, Phil wonders whether the numbers are cautions to keep away. John is positive that the numbers are for him. The following day, John and Caleb locate Diana Wayland and her daughter Abby, who is also in the film. Lucinda's daughter is Diana. When John uses Caleb as a ruse to approach Diana, they are at a museum. She accepts his invitation. There, John admits the truth, saying that they didn't actually meet at random, but rather that he found her thanks to her mother in the list of numbers. He is honest with her about the figures and more. On October 19th again, he drives himself to New York to try to do what he can to counter the probable terrorist danger. He notes that the cops have not blocked off the intersection of Lafayette and Worth when he arrives there. He argues aggressively with a policeman before fleeing to a nearby subway stop to escape being apprehended. The cops then start to pursue a suspicious-looking man holding a huge thing beneath his jacket as he descends the platform. As the train careens out of control across the crowded platform, it leaves a path of death and destruction in its wake. Later, on the TV, an anchorman reveals that the Lexington plane crash's electrostatic bursts are thought to be connected to the track problem. When John returns home, he discovers Diana and Abby waiting outside. Diana now feels sympathy for him. She recalls John telling her that Diana would pass away on October 19th, the date indicated by the last set of numbers. Lucinda used to frequently bring up that date in conversation. To look for additional clues, the four of them travel to Lucinda's old trailer in the midst of the woods. John enters Lucinda's room and sees a Bible on the desk, to the one Caleb was given earlier. He examines the underside of the bed after noticing more rocks underneath. He flips the bed over to reveal the underside after noticing some writing. Everyone else, the E from the final section of the letter is written all over it. Then John understands that the last prediction will have an impact on everyone on the planet. At this point, the enigmatic people reappear and move closer to the truck, and we can hear the enigmatic voices beginning to emerge. Caleb slams on the truck's horn as Abby begins to open one of the doors. John and Diana rush up to the vehicle. We learn that Abby also has the ability to hear hushed voices when she claims that the males were speaking to her in a whisper. Abby offers John the image of Judgment Day that was in the trailer in the morning. John notes that she colored in the central brilliant object of the drawing and gave it the appearance of the sun. John instantly realizes that the last incident is connected to the sun at this point. John joins Phil at his lab office after they all drive there. John tells him about a previous solar flare model they developed that simulated a devastating solar flare. According to John, this model actually represents the Earth, and this flare will obliterate all life on the globe. To spend time with his wife at home, he instructs Phil to go. John considers the final item on Lucinda's list while they are packing and notices there are no coordinates, unlike the prior predictions. Then he thinks back to Miss Taylor's conversation about Lucinda writing numbers on the closet door. As John enters the school and makes his way to the closet, everyone rushes there, much to Diana's growing panic. Though the door has been painted over, he still manages to find the closet. The door is taken off its hinges, and he returns it to his garage. Diana puts a final set of numbers, then rushes outside to his truck only to discover that all of them have been lost. Diana leaves the talk and stops at a gas station. She observes an emergency broadcast alert on the television inside as she approaches the payment terminal. Caleb exits the vehicle and uses a payphone to call his dad. Only the fact that they are at a gas station can he communicate to his father. In an attempt to persuade Diana to bring the kids to Lucinda's trailer rather than the caves, John is able to call her on her cell phone. Then he surprises her by telling her that the flare will kill everyone and travel kilometers underground, rendering any underground cave shelters useless. He then says that the only option left is to go to the trailer, abducted by the enigmatic stranger, who puts the two children in Diana's car and leaves. When Diana notices this, she chases after them in a very frenzied manner and climbs into a waiting SUV at one of the gas pumps to pursue them. She notices numerous cars stopped at a crossroads in front of her during the pursuit. As she crosses the junction after swerving into the other lane, she is forcefully T-boned by a large vehicle, causing the SUV to flip over and revealing the unconscious woman. When John starts running toward the chase, he passes by the intersection where Diana was struck. He makes his way to the back of the ambulance where the paramedics are attempting vainly to revive her. John sees that it is just after midnight as they announce Diana's death, indicating that it is now October 19th, the day of the final catastrophe and the day Diana's death was foretold by her mother. He finds tire tracks leading into the woods when he arrives at the trailer and pursues them. When he arrives at a clearing, he observes that the ground is covered in the exact same black, smooth stones that he has previously observed throughout the film. Caleb, who is distraught over his missing son, suddenly shows up secure and at ease while carrying a white rabbit. He intending to take Caleb and Abby to Lucinda's trailer, which is why the stranger took them. It is now clear that these enigmatic visitors are extraterrestrial creatures who have come to save this family. John discovers with regret that the aliens came particularly to save Caleb and Abby, not him, as they prepare to approach the sphere. Caleb initially objects, but John persuades him that he would always be by his side and that the only way for him to be rescued is by going with Abby. Caleb and Abby proceed to the orb after saying farewell in a tearful manner. The visitors begin to shed their human shells as they move, revealing their actual alien selves' bodies that emit dazzling lights. The final sign language communication between John and Caleb is "you and me, together, forever." The orb returns to the mother ship before launching into space. Grace greets him when he arrives at his parents' house. He assures her that Caleb is now secure. Grace and Mrs. Koestler embrace John and Rev. Koestler in a group hug. They hang on to each other throughout the entire ordeal. As Earth is disintegrating, spacecraft captures the final image of it. Young Caleb and Abby and their pet bunnies are dropped off on the surface by the spaceship we previously saw before it departs. The final image shows Caleb and Abby racing toward a massive and majestic lit tree in the backdrop as other spaceships approach to drop off additional kids.